in Canada because
a boot. Not a boot. Sorry.
Hey, welcome back to Trail Trash Garage with Jeff. We just we left off, I think, last time working on the XT250, and got some parts for the Gull Wing project. I got some seals, some gaskets, exhaust gaskets, and some carb parts because we're going to be going over those carbs. And just to kind of give you guys an idea, so I didn't want to break these carbs down. I really didn't, so I didn't break them down. What I did do, get a little bit of the schmooze on there. Anyway, I'll get that later. I did shine up the caps a little bit. You guys can see that. Yeah, and I just kind of cleaned up the carbs quite a bit, just with the toothbrush, degreaser, all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to break them down, and of course these are too big to fit in. Well, I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, but it'd be too big to fit in most ultrasonic cleaners. So, yeah, so that stuff's all going to happen. Colin was kind enough to drop off some of this. We've got some header wrap for the headers, which is why we have exhaust gaskets, because that stuff's got to come off. Well, we had the exhaust off anyway, so they need to be replaced. Alright, but we're working on the XT250 today. So, huge snowstorm out there today. I don't know how many feet we're supposed to get, but anyway. So last night I was doing a little 3D printing, because I'll bring you over here and show you. So you see these things right here, well, they're basically cable guides. So there's two on the XT. This one's bent a little bit, so we'll have to fix it. But this one goes up here, and the plastic was all busted out of them. They usually have a white Darlin, some kind of, you know, plastic insert that kind of the cables ride on. So I designed and 3D printed a couple of these ones. So this one will go in here, and this has got to go back on here. So what we'll do is I'll take this cable out. Back you guys up a little bit. I'll take this cable out and then reroute it through these. That's one job we're doing today. Now, I think I left off the other day with carb. So we got the carb back together, and all I found was that float height, like I showed you guys in the video. And I didn't really find anything else off on the carb. Some guys in the forums are saying that the rubber boot here doesn't seal that great. Last time Colin had it off when he did the engine rebuild, he didn't do any sealant. He did put a new gasket in it, so hopefully it's sealed. We'll check it if we're still having those issues, but I'm hoping that float height adjustment may have solved our problem. Getting the carb back in would prove difficult, so yeah, you can see something's missing here. I took the exhaust off, but I'm going to clean it up underneath there. The other issue I have, I'll move this over here. The other issue we have is right in here, and you can't see it because it's all dark and the lighting isn't the best in here, but basically what that is the rear boot on the carb that goes into the airbox. You can see my breath. It's cold in here today. The boot that goes into the airbox, it's not sealing. It's obviously been pushed back in to get the carb in and out, and so we need to fix that. Because although that won't necessarily make us run super lean, it will lean up the mix a little bit because you're getting more airflow through the airbox than you should. But the big deal is it's putting dirty air, because that air is not being filtered, so it's just going through. Yeah, so that's going to be the job for today, is to fix that, plus the wiring here. This should not be running on the outside of this frame. And every time the bike gets put over, this is just getting caked with mud. I mean, it's going to get caked with mud anyway because of the way the bike is ridden, but because it's actually used off-road. But we got to try to reroute this more in a factory position and kind of get things tucked away a little better, so they're a little better protected. Yeah, just cleaning that stuff up. In other little jobs here, we've got, you know, we got a crack here. I don't know. We've got some parts of those DR or something. Maybe we'll swap this piece out. The handlebars are bent. This is bent. We got some rusty fasteners that I might have. I might have some stainless for. Yeah, I don't know. So that's basically where we are today. I'm not going to film all of it because a lot of it's just futzing and boring. So I'll bring you back and show you the highlights. And like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing to that stupid airbox to get that. So we'll get that out and figure out. If I find something weird or strange or something, I'll hook you guys back up. And that way you guys can see what's going on. Otherwise, I'll probably just do an update. I know that these don't make the most exciting videos, but it's more just, hey, you know, what we're doing. Coming up on the Gullwing project, we're going to redo the seat and whatnot. Those will be more tutorial videos. They're not necessarily the right way to do things, just the way I did things. But you at least should be able to see what I did. So I'll bring you back, and maybe we'll do a video when we, well, I don't know, just maybe finding a bolt. I think last time we welded this bolt is what Colin was saying, it broke again. So usually I'd want a bolt in here with a shaft. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do. I might have to make one, and if that's the case, then I'll make one out of some mild steel round rod, and maybe that'll be a good video. Okay, I'll bring you guys back later. Update. So I got looking at this Airbox, and basically there's a bunch of chunks broken and stuff. So we got mounting tabs broken here. We got this cover. Colin had duct tape because this is broken. So yeah, I'm just not going to leave it like that. It's not sealing. I think we got to take it out and clean it all up and fix it. So yeah, but I don't know how to get out of this frame. So it's not connected to this piece. This piece is goes around the shock, and it is completely covered, or completely around the shock. So like, I think my only option is to drop the rear swing arm down maybe and undo that mount, and this mount and slide the shock out, and then maybe I can get this out. I don't know, I'm gonna have to do a little research on the web to see. So yeah, I'll bring you back in when I figure this out. Hey, welcome back, Trail Trash Garage with Jeff. Here, yeah, something escalated. So it's the next day. XT project, we got the car back in. We got it nice and cleaned. And everything's, you know, done up. However, I'll take you over to the Airbox and show you. But basically, the rear boot of the carb was not seated, so I needed to take it off. Now I got something going here, and I can't show you right now. Once that dries, I'll bring you on the next step. But basically, in there, we had several things that were busted. This was busted, and this is where the top holds on. So Colin had used duct tape, but basically that needs to be bolted on there. And but with this broken, it wasn't bolting up and staying strong. We had several tabs. One of these tabs has been broken off. You can see here where it's kind of propped up as the stuff dries. But I'm going to show you the Plastifix system. This is a way to identify plastics. And so this is most likely, and I couldn't find the code on it, but this is most likely ABS. Now, if you come back here, you guys may not be interested in any of this, but you'll see a lot of videos on the internet. And here, I'm going to bring you back. I'll set you up in the tripod. So I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here. So once again, just to show you, Polyvance. They're a company, and I don't know, we're not sponsored by them. I just found their products quite a few years ago, and to fix a sport bike. My wife had a CBR 600 F4 that she had dropped over, and I was looking for a way to really repair plastics. I've restored a lot of bikes. I've fixed up a lot of bikes. I did a Ninja 500 a couple of years ago for my son, and all the fairings were in terrible shape. And unfortunately, I keep running into people who try to fix ABS plastic with fiberglass and fiberglass resin or epoxy resin or whatever. It doesn't stick. It doesn't work. It doesn't. People think it does, and you'll go on videos on YouTube and they'll go, oh, just mix this up, and they'll put like a strip of reinforcement behind it. You can use fiberglass reinforcement strips with these types of repairs when you're doing plastic welding or this Polyvance rigid plastic repair system. Now, Polyvance also makes different style welding rods. So they make a plastic welding system, because some of these types of plastics, and I'll show you right here. Now, you guys probably, I don't know if you guys will be able to see all that, but there's different types of plastic. They do make welding rods. So this is not going to work for everything, and that's why you need to identify the type of plastic, because every type of plastic is something different. Just for example, ABS, your typical applications: instrument panels, grills, trim, moldings, consoles, armrests, support street bike fairings, canoes, aircraft wingtips, and interiors. Aircraft application is basically where I get this from a company out west called Aircraft Spruce. If anybody's interested in this, put the comment below and I'll get you hooked up with that company, or just do a search for Aircraft Spruce, Polyvance, or Plastifix. And that's Plastifix, Plastifix. It's not cheap stuff. The urethane is considered a toxic material, or hazardous material, sorry, hazmat, so it has to be transported, and there's extra shipping fees when that happens, which is why the last time we bought this, we bought the big kit, because I always buy the small kits, but the shipping just, it doesn't make it plausible. So there's a ton of other plastics, and of course I'm into plastics a little bit because of 3D printing, and you got to know kind of what you're doing, what you're working with with 3D printing. So something this doesn't work with is flexible plastic. There you're better off doing plastic welding, but you still need to know what type of plastic it is in order to weld it. So a couple of good things to plastic weld, and I don't have a plastic welding system. I use just an old soldering iron, but I will be picking up a plastic weld kit at some point, just because I really enjoy working on this stuff. There's not a lot of people around that do it, and I wouldn't even mind starting a little business here in Nova Scotia, maybe repairing this stuff, because let's face it, we all know sport bike plastics are expensive, and in the States you can kind of get these cheap kits off eBay, and they've shipped from China. But when you do the conversion to Canadian money, they're really expensive. Like, it's not the same as buying it in the States. But shipping and exchange just seems to be so much worse here in Canada for that stuff. So, but you repair the plastics. You can repair them, and this stuff makes the repair just as strong as it originally was, because you're basically remolding that plastic. It's not quite the same as injection molding in the original sense, but it's there. Another way to do this, you don't have to buy the kit, is to use ABS repair, basic ABS repair glue. And basically what it is ABS dissolved in acetone. And you can do that on your own. So the techniques are still the same. You need to sand it up, V-groove it. And I'll set this up once this dries, and I go on to stage 2 of this tab repair. I'll bring you back and show you what I'm doing. But this does basically the same thing. It uses a urethane and a powdered ABS plastic to basically mold the thing back together. And it is strong. Like, you'll see I've seen sport bike fairings that I've repaired break next to this repair, but this repair won't break. It doesn't break in this spot the same way. Obviously, I'm repairing those in a high stress area, like tabs and whatnot. So extra stress, just because you repaired it doesn't remove the stress, that extra stress to that area of the fairing. But just to give you an example of some other things, this won't work on most of your flexible ATV and DualSport fairings or dirt bike fairings, because most of that stuff, if you read here, looks like overflow tanks, inner fender panels, ATV fenders, so those, your wheel wells on most of your modern cars are a really flexible plastic. This stuff doesn't work. So plastic gas tanks, some kayaks and canoes, playground equipment, they use HDPE, polyethylene. And like, again, these little symbols, sometimes if you look around on the plastic part, you can actually see what these symbols are, and that makes identifying the plastic much easier, and you can follow this guide to whatever. So let's just say you're repairing an ATV fairing, and you look down and it's got this HDPE2 or whatever, it's polyethylene. You look over and it'll say, okay, this is the suggested method AW1 or NS21 with high density polyethylene, and it's the type of rod that Polyvance sells, but you probably could find that stuff from somebody else. But that's the type of plastic rod you want to use with your welding system. So, yeah, what's another? PE with LDPE, which is another polyethylene mix, semi-flexible, overflow tanks, inner fenders, blah, blah, blah. Same type of thing, right? And so they tell you how to describe, or like description how to identify. If you don't have the code, then say like the polyethylene, semi-flexible, melts, smears when grinding, usually semi-translucent, waxy, or greasy feel. Now this Airbox specifically has no markings on it. Couldn't find any markings. It is quite flexible, probably slightly more flexible than most of the sport bike fairings I've dealt with rigid. But you can't go by that alone. So what I heated up just a small area, and actually I just heated up a piece of metal that I use for, this is one of my little plastic welding tricks. Sometimes I don't use an old soldering iron, but I actually just use this if I got to get it in tight places or whatever. It's just a little tiny thin piece of metal. Anyway, heated this up. You touch it into an inconspicuous spot, and this thing started smoking. And smoking, so if you look at ABS, rigid while often white, may be molded of any color, sands finely. And on the other side, it'll tell you that it'll start to smoke when you, so right here, does it smoke a lot or bubble or brown when you try to melt it, generally not behaving as you would expect plastic to melt? Yes. Flexible, rigid. Well, it's rigid. So that takes you down in the flow chart to plastic rigid repair plastic system. So again, it's what you do. It's the proper way to fix stuff. Fiberglass and epoxy resins just don't adhere to some of these types of plastics. Polyethylene, polypropylene, and ABS, which I can't remember what ABS stands for, but it just won't. Another thing it won't stick to is PETG. It's polyethylene, blah blah blah, glycol modified. It's one of the things I print with most. PETG is what I print mostly with. Nothing much sticks to that. So your fiberglass resins, they won't stick to it. So even if you score the plastic and you get it, doesn't. I got in this argument on the internet once with a guy that was using CA glue and little bits of carbon fiber sheet to repair tabs. Well, here's the thing. Yes, it's strong, and yes, it'll fix it for now. But the problem is with motorcycles, especially sport bikes, like you're gonna get vibrations, especially with an inline 4-cylinder. You will get some high frequency vibration on that, especially if the carbs aren't completely synced or whatever. So the problem with those types of things is CA glue, which is a great glue to get something started, to get it so it sticks in the right position or something. But if you do the entire repair out of CA glue and say some sort of carbon fiber or fiberglass, sistering that in or blocking it, you're not repairing the plastic underneath. You're just kind of strengthening on the outside. And CA is very rigid. It sticks, but it's very rigid. It's very brittle. And over time, vibrations are going to break that CA glue, and then it's going to be a stinking mess for the next guy to fix, right? And this guy, he just wouldn't, I've been doing it this way for years. Well, yeah, I'm great you've been doing it this way for years, but when you sell that bike off, and I mean, he's got a few of these bikes himself, and he probably only rides them, because he's got 4 or 5 bikes, and he's an old guy, he probably only rides them once or twice a year or something like that. So maybe those repairs will hold up, over the long term for him. But he sells one of these bikes off to somebody who rides their bike more. Eventually, those tabs are gonna break again. And if they don't break where the CA glue, is in with the carbon fiber or fiberglass backing, it's going to break wherever that ends, wherever the CA glue, and that part has at the edge of it, where where the glue, it doesn't have that extra backing, and it's just sitting on top of the ABS at the base of the tab or whatever. Plus, it's very difficult to bend that stuff around tabs that bend 90 degrees. And you have a lot of stress in there. But again, it never repairs the base material. It really never does. Where this stuff does. You V-groove on both sides, so there's barely any of the original material touching, and you lay in the repair material. It makes a strong bond with the ABS that's already there because it is ABS. And and even ABS repair or plastic repair epoxies that you can get from say JB Weld or LePage, I still have not, those still don't seem to work like this system does. And I've had people say, even Colin, we repaired the dash on for example, we repaired the dash on the V-Strom, and he used a plastic epoxy, that from JB Weld that said it would work. Well, a couple rides in, it just snapped off again. It was not a permanent repair. It only lasted for a little while. So this really lasts, and because it's really the only, I've found in my experience, the only way to really repair correctly for a long-term repair. I'll bring it back once this dries enough that I can kind of take the tape off it and whatnot, and I'll show you how, there's actually a section, I'll show you real quick here. See, there's actually a section broke right out of this where that was attached, and something has broken that right out. So we're actually going to repair all of that. We're going to create a new piece just with the powder plastic, and I'm going to show you how I do that when I bring you back. Okay, so hold tight, and I'll see you in a few. All right, welcome back. So, let's turn this around here a little bit so you guys can see a little better. Yeah, so we got all this gap, like that was all busted out. So we got this gap to fix. So now that I got a little bit of a thing going here, I tried to crazy glue it the other night, and it didn't work. It just broke again. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some aluminum tape. And so we don't want a lot. The reason I use aluminum tape is because it's fairly rigid, so it'll hold. You can kind of get it to hold its shape. So if you need to like do a right angle or you need to mold something. Now this kit comes with some wax mold bars, and basically what you do is you just heat them up in hot water, and then you can kind of mold them around something. So say you got a broken tab on a sport bike fairing, and you need to repair that, like the tab's completely broken off and missing, but you have another tab on the other side or a very similar tab somewhere else. You can actually use the mold bar to make a mold of another tab. You can attach that to where you need it using tape or whatever. Using tape or whatever, and then you can recreate that tab using the method I'm about to show you. So we're going to put that across there. Now we got a little bit of a lip here. So basically, and then we're going to curl this up. And see what that's going to do is that'll give us a dam so that we're not going to go over where we are. Now, yeah, I should have probably roughed that up, sanded that plastic surface up a little bit. Maybe I will get in there with just a little bit of sandpaper real quick. I got one of these hobby sanding sticks. So what we'll do is we're just going to hold this back down real quick. So I've cleaned it and degreased it already, but we're just going to rough that up a little bit. Now typically you're going to want to V-groove that out, so if it's a crack you're going to V-groove like this. This was cracked through right here, and I haven't sanded that up to kind of clean it up. But you can see where the plastic was. I V-grooved it almost out so that you make it quite a bit bigger. Same here. I V-grooved that out quite a bit. And to V-groove stuff, I usually just use a little Dremel bit with one of these little auger bits. I got a couple different sizes there. Some are round. I like the round one because it kind of just makes a scoop. I do have a triangular one, but sometimes you get too much in the back or too much in the front with it because of how harshly it is. So there's a couple of different ways to applying this, and there are some tutorials the Polyvance does. You can kind of see down in there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah. Well, actually, that thing's going to be in the way, but I'm right-handed, so I need to get in there. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze, drop a little bit in there, and then stab it and pick up a ball. And then you're just going to squeeze again, and it drops the little ball of plastic off of it. And basically, you're going to do this all over. I got to put some more plastic in this eventually, so the urethane just melts the plastic, the powder plastic, into a little ball that sticks to the end of the needle. And then you're able to drop it in here. Into a slurry, basically. And the more urethane you squeeze out, the thinner the slurry becomes. So that kind of helps you regulate, like if you want it to flow into a crack, like maybe you can't get into the V-groove a certain area of it, so you want it to, you want it to flow. So if there's a little area where you can't, and like I can't explain it real well here, but there was a little area of this that's actually down because of the way I taped it on this side, and I taped it on this side because this part sticks up. It would be too hard to get a tape in the other way. But where it broke, because it broke away, and it actually broke at an angle. So like this. So here's the tape. It's hitting there, and here's where the screw goes in. There's an area right here. So I want the stuff to flow in underneath it. Then when you take after this dries, we'll take the tape off, and then we'll be able to see everything on the other side. Now, of course, the other side is going to be a little bit wavy because the tape's not, but you know, we're going again function over form here. But you can sand it back and make it all nice and smooth, which is what you do in a sport bike fairing situation. And this will probably take more than one layer, but actually, once we get one good layer in, as long as it adheres well, then we don't have to actually we won't need the tape anymore. We're going to be able to just we'll pull the tape off, and then we'll be able to build up another layer on the layer that's there, just to make it a little thicker, reinforce it. Now here I didn't V-groove this, and I should have. So I'm just going to get this really thin. But there's a nut in there. It's just a captured nut, so it's not a high. It's probably not very high stress right there. Like the stress is actually the tab. There's lots of meat. Like I wouldn't even have to repair this probably, but we're going to get it to get down in. Now I should rough that up a little bit too, but the surface is still not quite 100% dry because of the temperature here. It's kind of cold. So this should, as long as I lay down lots of urethane, it should melt the plastic that's not quite set up a little bit to help this bond. I usually have pretty good success getting that to bond to itself. And we're just, like there's a slurry, so I'm just smoothing it out. And that's the other thing too, is you can smooth this out with the end of the needle a little bit. See, just get the flow. Yeah, so there, we're gonna leave that, we're gonna let that sit up for a little bit. I'll bring in the camera around so you can get a better angle here. This is one of the mold bars that comes in the kit. So basically you just heat that up, get it nice and flexible, almost like one of those mold your own mouth guards, boiling water, and then you can kind of mold it around what you need to mold it around. But it won't stick to anything, right? So you gotta, which you don't want it to, but anyway. Get right in there. Now it's all black, I know, you can't really see, but you can already start to see it flashing off right there. And see that's sunk right down into that crack, so we'll need to do another layer. And maybe that time, when I do that second layer, I'll just V-groove in a little bit and widen it, so we get a little wider patch. That needs to stay still, so I can't really show you. But again, you can kind of see if there's more light in there now that I've adjusted the angle. But you can see it was cracked all the way through here. There was only a little bit left over here that was really holding that where it was. It was all cracked over here. And you can see where I roughed it up. And, well, I don't know if the camera, it's black, so it's kind of hard to see. But anyway, this part right now is strong. Again, now it doesn't need to take force that way anyway. It needs to take force this way. So that in that case, it's really going to be strong. So it should be able to put that right back on there. And that'll resist vibration and whatnot. So, well, anyway. So, hopefully wasn't too boring, or I didn't get ranting too much. But that's basically how you do that. And so we'll let that set up for a while. I probably won't touch this again for, well, I might not get back to touching it tonight. Maybe it'll be tomorrow or something like that. So I'll work at some other stuff here. I'm just picking away at stuff with the Goldwing and like sanding and painting little pieces. And I probably won't have another big episode of the Goldwing coming up. So I got to get caught up on those videos. There's a lot of editing to do. So we're going to leave that sitting for now. Really, I can't put anything more on the XT. That's not true. It's got the handlebars are tweaked, and there's some other things we can do over there. So maybe I'll bring you back after supper when if I can back out to work on that. We're going to replace the handlebar. I do have a straight set of bars off another bike. So maybe we'll put those bars on, get that fixed, and a few other things. I will take you over and show you one thing that I did. These I 3D printed. So these were the metal cable guides. And I think I filmed a little bit of that when I was saying that I was going to do this. But the inserts are actually printed, 3D printed. I don't know, the lighting's probably not great. I'm standing in there. So the plastic, I think it was probably Delrin or something anyway. it broke up, it got all brittle and everything, and it had cracked out of there. Anyway, I can reprint these if they get busted or broken up, but that'll allow that cable to, as a suspension compresses, this outside of the cable will rub against this, but instead of rubbing against that metal, it's going to rub up against that plastic, and that's PETG. So it's polyethylene glycol modified, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember exactly yet, but you can look it up if you're interested. And it's fairly impact resistant. It's got a lot of the good characteristics of ABS for strength, structure, and impact resistance, but it's easier to print than ABS on the 3D printer. And it's UV resistant. It's what they make reusable water bottles out of, the PETG. So it's a pretty robust plastic, and I use it for almost all of my 3D prints for motorcycle parts where strength is needed. We'll come back to the Airbox and back to the XT project either later today or tomorrow. I'll get you guys back at that point. Anyway, Jeff for Trail Trash Garage. Catch you in the next video. You know we're in Canada because...
A boot! Not a boot. Sorry.